source of the Apache footage worked at the Arizona Fusion Center, also known as the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center, and personally investigated UAP sightings, collecting videos and images of these bizarre encounters captured by sophisticated government systems. The source then passed this footage down to civilian Andy Marcial, where he presented his findings to the debrief. Andy joins me to break down the Apache UAP footage, along with a story on how he received the footage and why. Join us as we get rebelliously curious. Andy, thank you for joining me on Rebelliously Curious. Today on the debrief, we had some amazing UAP footage that we released with your help. Before we get into breaking down the footage and all of these questions I know that our viewers have for you that hopefully I'll be asking you, let's first chat about how you got interested in the UAP topic.
It's a question I've been asked a million times.
Well, we got to start somewhere. And this is where we're going to start, because some people might not be familiar with your work. And we'll get into some rubber duck footage that you released earlier too. But I love to just start off basic by just, how you got interested in the topic.
Well, I personally got interested in the topic from a personal experience. And I know a lot of people have stories and, they never have it. Usually they never have any evidence to back it up. So it's just something you either have to believe, or you don't believe, you take their word for it or you don't. So most of my life after this experience, it was that way. I had to just hope to God that whoever I told the story to believed it. And what had happened was when I was living here on Long Island around early 90s, I believe it was, I think I was about 13 years old. I was in my pool in the backyard on a summer day. And it was about, I would say maybe 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm in my pool with my cousin. And I just so happened to look up, or I got the sense of feeling to look up, and I saw something over the house. And I kind of did like a double take, I looked up again and just like was in absolute shock at what I was looking at, because I've always been into the subject and I've always had a real passion for it. I used to watch Unsolved Mysteries all the time, and it was always something that I was always into. And I never once thought I would actually see it because, everybody tells you it's fake, you don't, the stigma behind it was just always that it was a figment of people's imaginations, like it wasn't real. So when I actually was looking at it, it's like one of those things where your mind is like, can't wrap itself around what it is that you're seeing, because you're told your whole life it doesn't exist. But then you're looking at it right in front of you in broad daylight, just sitting there about 100 feet away from you. And it was a perfect disc. It was, the best I could, describe it as it looked like the sports model that Robert Lazar worked on that he described.
Right.
I wasn't able to see the windows though, because the perspective where I was standing, I got to see the whole underside of it, which was sort of like a gunmetalish silver color with like, the only way I could describe the surface features like when you see a DeLorean and you get that like sort of like brushed aluminum feel.
Yep.
That's basically, that's the best I could describe that it looked like from the distance that I was. And it was about the size of, I would say about the size of a quarter or $50 at arm's length. So it was fairly big. I would estimate it was probably about 50, 65 feet in diameter around there.
Wow.
And it was just sitting there, didn't move. It was just like static in the sky. And that's kind of what caught my attention first, the fact that it would look like it was stuck in the air. So then when I turned to the side to see if my cousin was looking at it, he was too. He was just there staring at this thing. And we both just like watched this like in disbelief. And then it kind of just started like it looked like something just like kind of pushed it. And it just started moving very slowly to the left of us, which I believe it would be towards the east, I would say that it was going. And we watched it until it got over the tree line and we couldn't see it no more. So it was about, I would say maybe 2 minutes roughly that we saw this thing for. And man, it was like your whole little world just goes boom. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
everything that you ever experienced in life after that is so different because you're looking at the world in a completely different way because you just saw something that's not supposed to exist. And it was
Well,
right
that,
there in front of
yeah.
you, not no lights or anything like that. I was, it's the physical, actual craft. And I haven't told this to anybody because it just recently happened. After all this time and all these years, I finally got confirmation that what I saw was real, um,
Wow.
and that it was actually investigated. Yeah, I found out through this I could share because I know he'll be all right with it, but it was a private conversation with Jonathan Ramirez. And I was telling him my story. And he, after, throughout the conversation, he stopped me and asked me if I can, go back to my story and give him the details again. And he told me, he was like, have you ever heard of the Brookhaven lab incident? And I'm like, actually, yeah, I have, because last year I had another individual that reached out to me on Instagram that lives here on Long Island. He heard my story and he told me the same thing. He says, have you ever heard of the Brookhaven lab incident? And I'm like, no. And he's the one that told me about it. So the fact that Jonathan Ramirez brought it up and he never knew that I never mentioned anything to him about this, I was just like in absolute shock because not only it confirmed what I saw, it confirmed what that individual saw, and he saw it at Brookhaven Labs. So basically what happened was at that time, the Brookhaven Laboratory was doing some sort of experiments or research using nuclear, energy. And as we all know now, these objects are attracted to nuclear facilities and nuclear energy. So apparently at that time, the Brookhaven laboratories were having visits from these crafts that people were seeing. And I so happened to have been 100 feet away from this craft that was visiting Brookhaven Labs at that time, which is incredible to think that after all this, I finally get that confirmation that holy crap, I was actually looking at a legitimate UFO. And he, from what he told me, is it was not ours. So whatever this was, otherworldly, I would have to say. But,
Confirmation's a beautiful thing.
yeah, it was. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was very nice to hear that after all these years and all the ridicule and all the bull crap that I've gone through. It's like, wow, who would have thought that now would be the time that I get the confirmation? Like,
Right. And interesting during a time where you're releasing footage, people are giving you footage. Can we, right? It's so serendipitous in its own way, right?
yeah,
It's
insane.
beautiful. So can you tell us how, I know that the source won't come forward, and from what we know, the source isn't going to come forward yet while we're recording and doing this interview. Maybe later on the source will. But can you tell us how you ended up getting your hands on this material?
Well, I literally just started my Instagram because it got to the point where I was just getting fed up seeing all this misinformation and constant BS that was being put out there. And, the biggest issue is that there was no real legitimate source anyone can go to that would tell them if this was real or not. So a lot of people were being fooled by, fakes and CGI creations and stuff that were just like, plaguing it's still to this day. It's even worse now because technology is so good. But, people didn't know. And I would get mad because, it's my passion ever since that day. Forget it. That's all I think about. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just something that no matter what you do, it never leaves your mind. And I decided instead of complaining when I would see these pages, I might as well do something about it. So a few friends of mine, when I had my personal account, talked me into it. And I decided to, just start. And I already had my own personal information that I've put on the side from years of, research. So I started using that to put, information out and using the older incidents because they were more difficult to fake. You know what I mean? I would like to stick with that because there was no real explanation. You couldn't say, oh yeah, it was drones because drones didn't exist, So that's how I started to show people, yes, this is real. Even though all this crap is out now, it is real. It's been around for a very, very long time, and this is the information that you could look up to find that out for yourself,
Right.
And my take, my take on this is a little different than most. I don't have the most, I'm not the most popular individual in this field because of, I guess, how blunt I can be and how straightforward I am. And honestly, I don't mind it, because if I changed the way I was, I would have never influenced this individual to come forward, because what he told me, that it was because of that, that, motivated him to reach out to me, because he liked the fact that I didn't take no bullshit from anybody, and that he was tired of the same crap everywhere. And he liked the way I was researching, and he liked the way I was presenting the information, and that I was passionate, and that he knew that I was trying to do the right thing. And he said to me that he was like, you seem to be the best person to give this to, because I knew you were going to do what you needed to do with it. And I just went ahead and reached out to whoever I reached out to, and now here we are.
Wow. It's such a story too. Can you give us a little bit of tidbits of the characteristics of the source? Like, what type of person is he, and like what type of relationship have you guys built so far?
Well, right now we're very good friends. We speak all the time. But when I first met him, of course, I didn't, take what he told me at face value. I questioned the shit out of the guy. I made sure that he sent me everything I wanted to see to prove that he was who he was. And he did. he did that and more. He showed me things. I was like, oh my God, all right, I got it. You are who you are. I believe you now. I mean, he went and made sure that he proved to me that he was, the real deal. And he wasn't just some kook that was just trying to, start something or, share some false information. Like, he really legitimately was who he said he was. And he had the same exact passion as I did for the subject. And he informed me that these videos were in, the DHS servers for a while, and they were just kind of ignored, by supervisors and, those superiors above them. They just didn't pay any mind to it, because they're the Department of Homeland Security and their interests are not UFO related. So it just, to them, it was nothing. So the videos just sat there, but internally people knew about them, and they were placed in a specific folder. I don't remember exactly what the name of the folder, but it was something like, like anomalous objects or something like that. And all the files were there. I didn't know that there was more than one. I was only shown a cell phone clip of the first video I received was the A10. And when I first got it, he sent it to me on a cell phone recording, and I'm looking at this, I'm like, holy crap, like, this is incredible, so he was very, very, very like nervous. He was very reluctant to get me the original. And it took a while, because I had to befriend him, and, I didn't want to push, and I didn't want to be like, oh, I need it now. Like, I didn't want to do that. I told him, listen, if you don't even want to give it to me, that's perfectly fine. The cell phone clip is enough for me, And then one day he reached out to me and told me I did it. And I'm like, what'd you do? He was like, got the originals. I'm like, what? I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, I got them all. He goes, and it's not just one. He was like, there's 3 videos. I'm like, oh my God. And then he tells me one of them is 40 minutes long. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, are you kidding me? And he's like, yeah. And then that's when he starts giving me the details of the other ones. And I'm like, wow. So I looked through the footage, and I was just like blown away, because I'm like, oh my God. Like, it didn't really dawn on me till later on, when I realized, like, because I follow this, I've been following this now for years. So to see the stories that were on the news about Tic Tac and Gimbal and Go Fast, and I'm looking at this, the length of these videos is only like not even a minute long, and they show something that's like really like hard to see, and it's like you really don't have much data to really make a legitimate conclusion of what this is, or what it could be, or what it could not be.
Right.
So when I'm just looking at these videos one day, and I said to myself, I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, I have the only videos that I've ever seen, and I have thousands of videos. I have a hard drive full of thousands of videos throughout the years that I've saved.
And also from Homeland Security too. There's been no footage released from Homeland Security.
There's only one video, and it was one video that I pushed for years because I thought it's like, this is not getting enough coverage, and I don't know why. And there's only one video, and guess where it came from? Department of Homeland Security as well. And it's one of the most famous videos. It's one of the most incredible videos, and that's the Aguadilla footage from 2010. And don't ask me why that has not blown up still to this day, because it's still one of the most incredible videos. But that's the only other video that I've ever seen that I could say, holy crap, this compares to that.
So why do you think Homeland Security is not reporting these videos then to to the office, to ATIP, to anybody, to any of the organizations?
Well, from my source, what he tells me is because it doesn't have a nexus to drug smuggling. It has nothing to do with what they are involved in. So to them, it's not worth investigating, and they just ignore it. So yeah, I know. Think about that.
So
how many sightings? I know, it's insane. And I mean, just
there has to be more to that, though. I would imagine, but maybe it's not. Sometimes it is just that simple.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think it's just that simple. I think that they just didn't want to waste their time with it. And whenever something like that would be seen, they just ignored it. You know, it's the same thing that happened with the individuals that got their hands on that footage or that were there, that, were involved with the 2010 incident. They went and tried to find people to give it to, and nobody wanted it. Nobody was interested. That's literally what happened. So they just threw it out on the internet. So I don't hold it past it to just be that simple. And another crazy thing is that just last year, they had another video from Aguadilla again, from Department of Homeland Security again. But this time they captured a disc-like object exiting the water. So now here you have the 2010, you have last year's from the Department of Homeland Security, and then I have 3 that I got my hands on, also from Department of Homeland Security. So it's like everybody's paying attention to, all these other sources, but it's like, wait a minute, you got a whole treasure trove of information coming from the Department of Homeland Security alone. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Before I queue up this footage now, how is this footage different than Tic Tac and then anything else we've seen?
Because it was released outside of government oversight. Nobody, I don't even think they know it exists. Honestly.
And what about visually? Like what visually makes it different than any other UAP sighting that we've seen?
Visually, it's different because, well, first of all, there's no editing, there's no cutting. You have the original authentic I can't say the original, because the original is in higher definition than the footage that we got our hands on. The one that we got was compressed because the original file was so big. I guess it didn't fit on the USB stick that they had, so it had to be compressed, unfortunately. But it's still good enough quality and has good enough information to
and it's the same
to
video.
Make it very significant footage.
Right.
But the difference between them is not just that, is that you're actually able to see what these objects are doing. And I mean, it's just incredible what they're doing, because you can't say at all that it's anything man-made, because it's impossible for any craft to make the maneuvers that these things are making, which is, to me, that's amazing. And the fact that the pilots made visual confirmation, they talked about it, they're looking at it and tracking it, is even more important, because now you have a second set of information that validates the sighting, because it's not like just seeing the video and seeing the objects and that's it. There's no talking or nothing. You have a reaction, which is a big deal, because now no one can say, oh yeah, it's just jets or something, because you're seeing that it can't be jets. And they're, expressing, they're like, oh, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but you could just see that it's not, So that's, to me, that's very important.
All right, let me cue this up.
Definitely want to clear the whole area as you're going in there, because you have a lot more restricted visibility than what you do during the day. Right. Coast Tower Longbow 281, lane 4, request to west slopes.
Longbow 281, taxi north of Tower 2 west slopes, 1 count.
281, roger.
Wow, are those 3 really fast flying jets up there?
Probably some A-10s or some F-16s. We're not looking at them.
So what did we just see right there?
So first of all, this whole thing occurred in between 2017 and 2018 at the Picacho, that's what I believe is pronounced, Picacho, Arizona, Army National Guard Aviation Training Site. This was a training facility for Black Hawk helicopters, and the two pilots that were in the craft at the time were, I believe they were just doing takeoff and landings, and that's when in the distance of the footage you see the objects come in and enter and fly by in like a triangular formation, and that's when it catches his eye, and he's like, oh, are those three fast flying jets? So right there, just him saying that, you already know they're not birds, because this is a trained Apache pilot. They're not going to mistake birds for jets, because if that's the case, then there's a very big problem with how we're training our pilots and fighter pilots.
I would agree with that.
You know what I mean? That's a very, very big issue if they can't discern between the two. And as he's tracking it, first you hear the second his other co-pilot, or the one training him, state that maybe it's A-10s or F-16s, and the reason why he says that is because Davis-Monthan Air Force Base is nearby, so that's why he was assuming that's what it may be. And as he's tracking them, you see that the object, one of the ones in the front, kind of like turns back, and they do when I first saw it, I called it the dance, because it's like they do like this twirl around each other, and then they go back into formation and shoot off, out of view. But the fact that he's tracking them is showing you that he's not, like he sees them and he doesn't know what that is or what they are. You know what I mean? So it's a big deal, because it's showing you something that is incapable of being performed with conventional craft. You can't make maneuvers like that. It's just impossible. So right there, just off of that alone, is it shows that what they captured or what they saw was something different.
And what tech was that used that shot this video, the first video that we watched? Do you know?
The camera, I know it was shot under FLIR. The exact specs of the camera, I'm not 100% sure, but I know that Dave Fouch has done an analysis video, and he goes into all of that. He found out exactly what system was used from the Black Hawk. He goes through the entire explanation of what you're looking at, all the different sections of what they mean and everything. He goes through all of that, and that analysis will be revealed on Saturday.
That's awesome. All right, now we'll go into our next section.
Longbow 281, taxi north of Tower 2 West slopes, 1 count.
281, roger.
Wow, are those three really fast flying jets up there?
Probably some A-10s or some F-16s. We're not looking up there.
So we're seeing that is a better view. Can you tell us what they did with that video, just so that people could see close up what these actually look like? And then people are wondering what these images are now. We'll get into the second section of this, but what was that last shot that we just saw? What was it doing for us, for the viewer to know? What is the difference between the first video we watched than this one?
Well, the second one is the close-up version of it, where actually, because unfortunately, like I said, and I know I'm going to get, people complaining, and it is what it is. It comes with the territory. Because the fact that the footage was compressed from the original, you're not going to get the original quality. Does the original exist? I'm pretty sure somewhere out there the original is there. But unfortunately, this is what we have. So what they did was, with what you're looking at now with these three objects, they used a artificial enhancing software that brought out the objects and showed what they were in more detail. And basically what it showed was that these were spherical objects with what looks to be like a cube-like structure in the center, which is very interesting, because there was another incident where a pilot, I believe his name is Ryan Graves, claimed to have seen an object that flew between him, I believe it was, and another jet, and he described the exact same thing. It was a spherical object with a cube-like object in its center.
Lieutenant Graves claims his pilots were encountering bizarre craft almost every time they flew.
You know, it's one thing if one person sees one of these objects, like, okay, that's crazy. When you go out there every day, you see them, and your brothers and sisters and other squadrons are seeing them, and, you know, it's like, okay, well, this is probably some type of maybe drone thing or something that they're testing out. It wasn't until someone actually saw one go in between two aircraft at a close range, probably within 150 feet, that it was starting to get worrisome.
Lieutenant Graves says when one of the objects nearly caused a terrifying mid-air collision, senior pilots in his squadron decided to act.
At this point, we're like, something needs to be done.
And the fact that, you know, the AI software was able to bring that up, to me, is incredible, because I never expected it to be something like that. And the fact that we actually now have some sort of visualization of what it is that he might have, or what it is that he saw as well, is pretty remarkable, honestly, in my opinion. I was just kind of blown away when they showed me this. So it's amazing.
Yeah, it is. And we'll go into our,
amazing. And
yeah,
actually, I do have to point out one more thing. A lot of people have been, you know, like they've been getting on my case, because ever since I started talking about this, they're like, well, I hope it's clearer than this footage, or I hope it's clearer than that footage. And people have to understand, we're not dealing with one single type of craft. We're not dealing with one form of entity or type of entity. We're dealing with things that we don't understand. So yes, some people see physical crafts that looks like nuts and bolts, but then you have objects like these that just don't make any sense whatsoever, but they are moving in an intelligent way. You understand? So this is the mystery of it. What are we looking at that doesn't make sense, but is showing a level of intelligence? You understand? Yeah. It's not going to be that whatever, you know, everything that people see is a solid craft or something that resembles a physical object. No, there are objects, and I've gotten confirmation from sources that they don't have a physical shape. They're almost like just energy, and just pure energy or something like that. You know, like we just don't know, but it exists. People see it, and we captured, you know, it was captured in this video. It was captured in the other 3 videos that they released. So it's real. You know, you can't just dismiss it because it doesn't look like something you expect it to look like. You understand?
Right. And let's go into this next video now and let's analyze that, because this is a little bit of a different image where we're seeing something within the UAP. So we'll go into this next frame.
It was basically a cube with inside of sphere where the points of the cube were touching outside of the sphere.
So what we're seeing here are these 3 UAPs. One is going in and out. It's flickering in and out, and it looks like it's disappearing. And we're also seeing this cube that you were saying before. And we've never seen UAP images like this ever before, correct? This is the first time we've ever seen something like this outside our typical tic-tac shapes, you know, triangles, pyramids that we'd say, but those have kind of been a little bit debunked now, you know, saucer-like shaped UAPs, but this is kind of like a mix of an orb, but seeing something within the orb. And can you also tell us then too how this footage was analyzed?
Well, the footage was analyzed by quite a few people. As you can see, Dave Fouch is one of them. He's got over 20 years of experience with FLIR equipment. He, you know, takes them apart, puts them back together. I mean, if there's anyone that's going to be able to, you know, like properly analyze footage, it's going to be Dave Fouch. It's just what he does. There's been, you know, PhD level individuals who have looked into this as well. At first, I will not lie, you know, they were not impressed, but once they started to, you know, like actually put their time and effort into analyzing the footage, they literally just became obsessed with it and were like, all right, what are we looking at? Because, you know, at first they thought nothing, and now they're like, okay, there's something here, and it's showing signs of an anti-gravity propulsion, you know, and it's incredible, you know. And so far, yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you, I've been afraid because of reaction that I've received before from other, you know, videos, but the fact that I got this reaction from everyone who's seen this is, makes me feel good, because it's like, okay, I knew what I was looking at. I was just hoping that everybody else saw the same. And so far everyone has, and they're excited for what they're seeing. So, I'm sure once, Saturday comes, we're going to get the full analysis. And, I know there's a bunch of individuals working on it. If I'm not mistaken, I believe MUFON as well is working on this. There's a decent amount of well-educated individuals that are looking into this and coming up with their own conclusions. And so far, the conclusions are that this is unexplainable.
The cube light box within this kind of orb-like shape is something that we've never seen. And you never know, this footage might be coming forward now, and new footage might come out after this, reconfirming it. And here's
well,
something.
That's the hope. That's the hope. That's been my goal from day one with this. It's not,
right.
I knew that people were going to be upset because it's not what they expect. But again, they have to understand, this is the first time, number one, that anybody gets footage like this in its original state, its entirety. It's hasn't gone through the hands of government, hasn't gone through the hands of military. So we're looking at the original, you understand? And the way I've looked at this entire, situation or event or whatever you want to call it, is that we have the ability now to show these people, in Congress and in the military, that if they don't do what they need to do and start telling the people the truth, other people are going to get fed up and start spilling the beans and putting out information that they may not want out. You understand? So it's either you get your shit together and just start telling us the truth, or eventually people are just going to be like, fuck it, and here it is. This is what I got, because it's getting to that point. I mean, just look at the hearing of what happened. It was yes, it's incredible because it's happened after 50 years or whatever. And, it's in the public's eye now, but it was a bit of a joke that they, responded in the way they did to certain questions. Like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be responsible for investigating this, and you have no idea about these incidents or these events. So it's like, you know what, now with this event or with what we're doing, I feel like it's going to put a lot more pressure on them to say, okay, we need to start doing something, because regular civilians are getting their hands on footage that we don't know about and is coming out into the public. And now people are asking questions.
Yeah. And we'll get to the hearing part after this footage, because I want to hear your thoughts on that as well. So let's go into the next section of this.
Longbow 281, taxiing north to Tower 2 West slopes, 1 count.
281, roger.
Wow, are those 3 really fast flying jets up there?
Probably some A-10s or some F-16s. We're not looking up there.
All right. Can you tell me a little bit about what this filter is and why they used it?
Well, because the objects are difficult to see, unfortunately, with the white hot, black hot that the FLIR optics use, they added this filter to make the object stand out a little more. And that's why you're able to see the movement a lot clearer when they do that whole little dance. But that's really the reason why they did it, because, like I said, the resolution is not the best, but all the data that comes along with it is still just as important as if, you had the high resolution, because, the visual confirmation and the reactions are very important.
Right. So Andy, can you tell me a little more about the footage too? How fast were these crafts moving?
Speed wise, I'm not 100% sure. I do know that the crafts were moving at a high rate of speed, because if they mistook these objects for F-16s and A-10s, I did my research and was able to pull up online that, number one, A-10 size is 53 feet long with 58-foot wingspan, which is pretty obvious. If that's the case, if that's what it was, you would know what it was. The F-16 is 47 foot long with a 31-foot wingspan, and the cruising speed of the A-10 is 350 miles per hour, while the F-16 is 570 miles per hour. And that's just cruising speed. That's not with afterburners or anything like that. So Now you're talking about these objects were traveling anywhere between 350 to 500, 600 miles per hour, which is pretty incredible when you think about it,
Yeah, it is. So when we're looking at the object, do we know that it's is it hard? Is it a solid object? Is it transparent? Do we have an idea when they were breaking down the footage and analyzing it? Did they tell you that?
No, the only thing that they told me was that, it was a sphere with a cube inside of it. So that would mean that, it was clear, I would assume. I mean, if it's solid or not I don't know. But
was the image, was the object hot? Was it warm? Was it cold? Did it say that?
FLIR
usually detects that. Yeah.
Yeah, I did verify with Dave that the FLIR was under white hot mode, which means that the objects were emitting some form of heat. But the thing is, it's the entire object was emitting heat, so which is interesting. It's not like if it was a jet, you would see the heat in the rear from the jet's,
right,
propulsion. So that was interesting, because if it is, then that means the entire object itself was emitting it all around. So
right, and there was no propulsion that we could tell whatsoever.
No signs of propulsion, nothing that we can tell.
Any sound?
I don't think there was sound because they were inside. So that one would be difficult. But I mean, given that there was no signs of propulsion, I would say the objects were quiet, were silent.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so then when was this footage taken?
The footage was taken roughly between 2017 and 2018. There's no exact date. I'm not sure if in that little section where they have the time, if maybe there's some kind of coding in there that gives them the date, but I know that it was between then, because it's 2017 and 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
So why did you feel that it took the source this long to get this footage out?
Because they don't know who to give it to, and now that, here we are talking about this subject, and it's a little more, that people aren't as afraid as they used to be. So I feel that's why now certain people are, like they have the courage to do that, to come forward and release it, because it's, been so accepted. But again, because of, public reaction, they don't want to put their face out there because a fear of being ridiculed and being mocked. And that's a real thing, because I've experienced it, it's a legitimate, concern. And then they wouldn't be the only ones concerned about that, because you had individuals, I'm not sure which one of them they were. I think it was Ryan Graves who spoke about the negativity that he received when he came forward talking about it. He was being made fun of, and
right.
Who wants to continue talking about things like this when you're just constantly going to be made fun of, and it's sad to see that, someone like a legitimate pilot who is trained to do these things and use this technology is still not believed by the general public. It's like, what does it take for someone to be believed? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, it's never good enough for the general public, for the most of the general public. I won't say all, because I know there are individuals out there who take this very seriously and believe it, but the majority is just like, oh my God, it's very difficult.
Yeah, I say it's kind of rude when you don't believe experts that are trained pilots or have these trained eyes. It's almost kind of like a slap in the face.
Yeah.
It's like somebody telling you that, you've worked on your job, you've got your 10,000 hours, you've become an expert, you might even have a PhD in a certain topic, and then someone coming up to you and saying, I don't think you really know what you're talking about. And I find that rude, because people are experts in all different spaces, and we should believe those experts and what they're saying and what they're seeing and how they perceive it as well. Yeah.
It's extremely rude. I mean, it was one of the things, I spoke about at the beginning when I was getting, the backlash and everything. I'm like, I mean, you're talking about someone who, this is his job, like, for example, Department of Homeland Security. These are trained observers. Their job is to observe. Their job is to use this equipment to find the bad guys and to discern whether or not it's a bird or it's a drone carrying some drugs. And now you're telling them that they don't know what they're doing. Like, so this is why I said, if that's the case, then we have a bigger problem than UFOs. And it's who's training our freaking fighters and military personnel correctly if they're confusing birds with, jets or whatever, or they don't know the difference? That's a big problem,
It is.
So
Yeah.
that's how I look at it. I think it's very disrespectful to people who risk their lives every single day to make sure that we can go to sleep at night comfortably. And now we're looking at them and, they fear coming forward because a regular Joe Schmo that doesn't do anything and probably plays video games all day sitting in his mom's basement gives his opinions and everyone follows along with that. So it's like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It just does not make any sense.
Yeah, I agree. Why did they call it, and this might be, a simple question, but why did they call it the Apache footage?
Actually, that's the name that we gave the footage.
Okay, there you go. So why? Why did you call it Apache?
Well, because of the UH-60, which is the Apache, but I guess it just fit, honestly.
That's fair. That's
Yeah,
fair. There's always
fit.
we have rubber duck, we have tic tac.
Exactly.
We've
Well,
got all the names.
I can give you an explanation for the rubber duck. That's because the object
The
was
blimp. The sphere. Yeah, there's so many of them. So I want to go back to the C3 committee hearings that happened. They did say that people will be prosecuted for releasing this type of footage. Are you worried, or is the source worried about this? And what were your thoughts when you heard that? And then now, a week or so later, looking to release footage that the committee said that potentially in the future, people could be punished for this.
Yeah, that was one part I definitely caught when I was listening. I'm like, well then, I'm like, I think they might be talking about me. It did get me a little worried when I heard it. But the response to it then made me feel a little bit better, was that they have no, official, I guess, rule in place or whatever for that. So I guess I could say I'm really, really, really lucky that I got my hands on this before they decided to make rules, because now they really can't do nothing.
Well, and it's not in legislation yet either, right? And,
Yes.
And the system needs to be more transparent, because then you're not going to have leaks. That's a big part of it. So I think that, we'll see what happens. I think that was a false threat in my mind. And if it is something, you're going to have a lot of people in the UAP community having a lot of conversations about that. And you're going to get people, for example, like the source, that are coming forward with all this footage because they want the truth and they feel that this needs to be in the forefront and people need to be talking about it.
Honestly, I think it would be incredibly unfair for them to do something like that. It's just like, wow, first of all, I didn't ask for it. It literally just landed on my lap. So you mean to tell me because it landed on my lap, I have the right to be arrested and be sent to jail?
And I think that, and I think legally you're not, I don't think you're in any, and again, I'm not a lawyer, so don't quote me on that. We'd have to ask a lawyer, but I think from what I've read and what I know, that just because someone gives you something doesn't mean that you're technically an accomplice to it. That's for sure. But we will see as, and obviously if any lawyer is, please message in the comment below and let me know if I'm wrong. I would like to know that. Let's be honest here. But also going back to the footage, did the source or anyone else attach to it or filmed it that was given to them, do they feel that it was a threat of any kind?
When I spoke to my source, it did come off that way. That's how, that's literally how everybody took it, like it was like threatening the public. Like, if you do this, we're going to come after you. But it's like,
no,
wow.
I meant by story. I should explain. Did you think that the footage, the UAPs were a threat to us? That's
okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah. If the UAPs were a threat to us in any form of that, looking at that footage and thinking, oh my gosh, this these things are violent. There's something that's happening here. Did that source feel that there was a threat coming from these UAPs, that why he needed to put it forward? Or was there any type of threat that might have been mentioned around this footage?
No, there was no mention of any kind of threat or, reason to engage or anything like that. I mean, even still now, I don't think there have been some stories of, these objects engaging, but they're like few and far between. I don't think that they had any reason to feel that way. I never got the sense that that's how they felt. They just were mystified by what it was that they saw, like they just didn't know. But I don't think, listen, a lot of people say, oh, if it's aliens, they're going to come after us or blah, blah, blah. Look, if they really wanted us, if they really wanted this planet, they wanted us off of it, we'd be already gone. There'd be absolutely no way for us to defend ourselves against what they have. It is what it is. We have that ability. So the fact that we're still here having a conversation about this tells you that that is not the intentions that they, or whatever is up there has, you understand? Because you just know. It's like us, like we have the ability to take over places. And unfortunately, yes, we do in certain locations, but we also know that to respect certain things, or to respect, forests, or keep them, make them off limits so nobody can go there. So I guess you have to look at it like that. They're probably smart enough to know not to engage us because they know that they could squish us at any time,
Right. Does anybody think that this might be a foreign adversary and not a UAP?
Honestly, every time I hear that, it's like, I do exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm like, because it's like, okay, how is it that it could be a foreign adversary when this is a phenomenon that's literally been around since ancient times? I mean, if you actually do a little bit of research and look into this subject and look into our past and just read the stories and the events and the, things that people have seen, and yeah, they're all filled with, like fantasy and myth, but when you add in this subject, it all of a sudden starts to make a little bit of sense as to what it is that they possibly interacted with or saw that caused them to have these views and create these religions. Because at those times, if something like that came down from the heavens and presented itself to you, even now it's mind blowing. Could you imagine then, when you had no knowledge of nothing? It would literally be on the level of godliness. It would literally be like you were in the presence of a god. So when you think of it like that and you look back, the information is there. All people have to just look, read, like look at the Vimanas from Indian culture. These are, castles from in the sky, shining castles that were flying around, shooting at each other. Like, really? You know what I mean? What else did you think they saw? They must have seen something that to them was a castle, but it was actually something else. It was some beings that were probably here for a very long time, and at that time had some sort of interactions with human beings. But it is definitely, unless China and Russia created a time machine and they've been messing with humans all the way back then, that's a different story. But no, it's definitely not China. It's definitely not Russia.
Is it any way it possibly could be our own tech?
So that, I will say that we do have. Okay. I have spoken to individuals that have told me that we have reverse engineered certain technologies, and allegedly, from what we've heard, right? Yes. Last I heard was that we actually do have a triangular looking craft that actually orbits this planet and is used for reconnaissance.
So are you saying that this footage could technically be US tech?
Those objects, I don't think they are, because it's nothing like solid. It's more like sort of an energy, I guess you could say. But there is United States tech or some kind of military tech that people are seeing that they claim are UFOs, but they're not UFOs. They're actually man-made craft. That is true. They are up there.
Right. So right now we're not sure if it's man-made tech. We don't know what these crafts are, what this is that we're looking at right now. Do you or the source feel that there might be a threat that we are showing our own tech now to foreign adversaries? Out of these videos, not past videos, not present videos, this actual footage now, was that a concern to the source that maybe maybe they are leaking their own footage, their own tech, and putting us into danger with foreign adversaries like China and Russia?
No, because they understand that what they're seeing is it can't be something of ours. That I mean, based off of what I was, the conversations I've had with him, what the source from Apache said, these things, it's you get the sense that whatever this is definitely doesn't come from us. You understand? Like it's very difficult to explain that, unless you've actually been around it. You know what I'm saying? You can you could come to whatever conclusion you want when you see the footage or when you see things, that you see on the internet. But when you're actually seeing it, it's a different feeling that you get. Like when I saw my craft, I did not get the sense that there was a human being behind that. You understand? Like it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's very weird, but you just see it, you feel it. So I'm pretty sure they didn't think it was anything like that, or that they were releasing anything, or concerned that they were releasing any, secrets. I don't think they were.
What do you think now when this is released? Because again, this interview is done just before, Friday. What do you think the DOD is going to say about this footage? Do you think they're going to say anything at all? Or do you think they're going to comment?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I'm hoping the goal is to put pressure to get a response, and possibly, push this in a different direction where, they'll feel like they need to address this and inform us that, okay, yeah, something's going on, or we do have information, and that's the goal. That's what I'm hoping happens. You know what I'm saying? It gives them a little push they feel a little more pressure, but who knows, it could go good. It could go bad. I don't know.
Right. And we've seen that the rubber duck footage that you released previously, and potentially this footage, we'll see if they find out later on, and maybe in another hearing or in a UAP report, that this footage could be ours, or American tech, or it could be foreign adversary. But right now we know from the rubber duck footage that's been proven to still be a UAP. So I think as we're going along, and it's really great that we have people in the UFO community are pushing forward and lobbying to find out if this type of footage is real or not, because we found out in the hearings that, from what we've heard, and George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell will have their own statements about that, but that some of that footage wasn't UAP footage, right? So do you think that maybe in another report, they're going to bring this back up?
I mean, maybe, I don't know. Today I had a conversation with Tim McMillan today. He was on Twitter, and I asked him, how do you feel that, or what do you think about the fact that the ones holding all of the secrets are the ones running the investigation? And he gave me a pretty long response, but in the end, the gist of it was pretty funny that this is exactly how it's going down, that the ones holding the information are the ones in charge of investigating. It's just like, okay, so I don't understand. So it's like they're running around in circles, chasing their own tail, and who knows, to me, that's interesting, because it's like, all right, they have to be sweating right now wherever they're at, because they know what they have. And it's like, all right, how do we work around this so we can not make ourselves look like fools, because they did lie to Congress. They did not tell the truth. You understand what I'm saying? And I don't know. It's interesting, because, there's a lot to lose for them. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, but there's other things, that you can get into the rabbit hole, and it goes deep. But I told Tim today, I'm like, especially about the Admiral Wilson documents, when we spoke about it, I said, for over 70 years, this subject was made fun of. Basically, we people who believed in it were made to look like fools, and they denied it, and told everybody that no, you guys are crazy. And now look. So that means 75 years of conspiracy theories was never a conspiracy. It was real. It was happening, and look at how they made people look. They made people look like fools. People like me stressing out because we're thinking there's something wrong with us, and there's nothing wrong with us. There was something wrong with them because they've been lying this whole time. And now we have to look at all this and say, okay, so what about everything else that they told us was not true? That means we have to start looking at all these things and like going through them with a fine tooth comb to find out the truth, because now it just opens the doors for everything else, like
it does. Tim McMillan told me something when I first joined the Debrief, and I've always kept it in mind when doing any research around UAPs. I said, what UFO books should I read outside of ones I haven't read? And he said to me, don't read the UFO books, read the books about administration, read the books about politics, read the books about what's happening internally with government, because then you'll have a better idea and you'll be able to ask better questions. And I think that was a really, really smart response from him. And I think that a lot of people should do that, because if they want to ask better questions or they want to get away from ignorance and learn a little bit more, that's the best way to do it. And all of those books are accessible to everybody.
The problem is that nobody opens them up.
Right. And I think that's, and hopefully they, maybe after listening to this and us too, maybe they will, because that's the goal on my end. Well, my last question to you, Andy, is to anybody who wants to discredit this footage, what would you say to them?
I'm actually not gonna say what I would say.
This is a podcast. We're not on broadcast. You're allowed to say whatever you like.
I'll be nice about it. Listen, I've gotten so many people attempting. Mick West is the best, is number one, is my number one fan when it comes to my footage. All I'm gonna say is this: you can attempt to debunk whatever I put out or whatever you see or whatever story is told to you. It doesn't matter, because the way I look at it is there's more than enough evidence out there to show you that this has been with us for all of humanity's time on this planet. It's been with us since the beginning. Whether you want to accept it or not, it is what it is. And I always say that reality does not need your permission to exist. Like, it does not need your approval. It does not need you to believe in it in order for it to be real. So if you want to live your life ignorant with this in mind that, it can't be real, then listen, that's on you. You could live that ignorant life all you want. But let those who are willing to open their mind, let them open their mind. Let them experience a reality that you never will, because of the ignorance that you choose to follow, I guess you could say.
Thanks, Andy. And thank you for being rebelliously curious with me today.
Very rebelliously curious.
Yeah, extremely. This is rebelliously curious to its full end, full stop. Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy.
No problem. Thank you.